A blonde is sick and tired of all these blonde jokes and how all blondes are perceived as stupid, so she decides to show her husband that blondes really are smart. While her husband is off at work, she decides that she is going to paint a couple of rooms in the house. The next day, right after her husband leaves for work, she gets down to the task at hand. Her husband arrives home at 5:30 and smells the distinctive smell of paint. He walks into the living room and finds his wife lying on the floor in a pool of sweat. He notices that she is wearing a ski jacket and a fur coat at the same time. He goes over and asks her if she is okay. She replies, yes. He asks what she is doing. She replies that she wanted to prove to him that not all blonde women are dumb, and she wanted to do it by painting the house. He then asks her why she has a ski jacket over her fur coat. She replies that she was reading the directions on the paint can, and it says, for best results, put on 2 coats. A first-grade teacher was having trouble with one of her students. One day she asked Johnny what his problem was. He replied, I'm too smart for the first grade. My sister is in the 3rd grade, and I'm smarter than her too. The teacher took him to the principal's office. The principal told her that he would give Johnny a test, and if he failed to answer one question, he would have to go back to the 1st grade and be quiet. The teacher and Johnny both agreed. What is 3 times 3? 9. 6 times 6, 36. Finally, after about an hour, he told the teacher, I see no reason Johnny can't go to the 3rd grade. He answered all of my questions right. The teacher asked if she could ask him some questions. The principal and Johnny agreed. What does a cow have 4 of that I only have 2 of? Legs. What do you have in your pants that I don't have? The principal gasps, but before he can stop him from answering, Johnny says, pockets. What goes in hard and pink then comes out soft and sticky? Bubblegum. What starts with F and ends with K and means a lot of excitement? Fire truck. The principal breathes a big sigh of relief and says, put Johnny in the 5th grade. I got the last 4 questions wrong myself. Anna's refrigerator suddenly stops working, so she called a repairman. Since she had to go to work the next day, she said to the repairman, I'll leave the key under the mat, fix the refrigerator, leave the bill on the counter, and I'll mail you a check. Oh, by the way, don't worry about my dog, buddy. He won't bother you. But whatever you do not under any circumstances talk to my parrot. I repeat, do not talk to my parrot. When the repairman arrived at Anna's apartment the next day, he discovered the biggest, meanest-looking dog he had ever seen. A little skinny chihuahua with sharp teeth. But just as he was told, the dog just lay there on the carpet watching the repairman go about his work. The parrot, however, drove him nuts the whole time with his incessant yelling, cursing, and name-calling. Yow mama so fat she stepped on a scale, and it's said to be continued, the parrot said, giggling. Finally, the repairman couldn't contain himself any longer and yelled, Shut up, you stupid ugly bird! To which the parrot replied, Get him, buddy! A woman goes to the doctor, worried about her husband's temper. The doctor asks, What's the problem? The woman says, Doctor, I don't know what to do. Every day my husband seems to lose his temper for no reason. It scares me. The doctor says, I have a cure for that. When it seems that your husband is getting angry, just take a glass of water and start swishing it in your mouth. Just swish and swish, but don't swallow it until he either leaves the room or calms down. 2 weeks later, the woman comes back to the doctor looking fresh and reborn. The woman says, Doctor, that was a brilliant idea. Every time my husband started losing it, I swished with water. I swished and he calmed right down. How does a glass of water do that? The doctor says, The water itself does nothing. It's keeping your mouth shut that does the trick. A wife was in bed with her lover when she heard her husband's key in the door. Stay where you are, she said. He's so drunk he won't even notice you're in bed with me. And sure enough, the husband lurched into bed, but a few minutes later, through a drunken haze, he saw 6 feet sticking out at the end of the bed. He turned to his wife. Hey, there are 6 feet in this bed. There should only be 4. What's going on? Nonsense, said the wife. You're so drunk you miscounted. Get out of bed and try again. You can see better from over there. The husband climbed out of bed and counted. 1, 2, 3, 4. Damn, you're right. I am the one, the way your son don't. A guy goes to Las Vegas to gamble and loses all his money. He doesn't even have money for a cab. He said to the driver that he would pay him back next time, but the driver said, Get the fuck out of my cab. So he walked all the way to the airport and got home. After some time, he goes to Vegas again, and this time, he wins big. He gets his bags and is ready for the airport with all his winnings. He sees a line of cabs, and at the very end, he sees the driver from last time that kicked him out. He thinks for a moment, how can he get his revenge? He gets in the first cab cab and asks, how much to the airport? The driver says, $15. How much for a BJ on the way there? The driver says, get the fuck out of my cab. He goes to the next one and asks, how much to airport? $15. How much for a BJ on the way there? He also tells him to get the fuck out of his cab. He does this all the way down the line of drivers, each one kicking him out. He finally gets to the last driver, the one from his last trip. Hey, how much to the airport? Driver responds, 15. He hands him $15 and says, let's go. As the driver leaves, all the other drivers stare out their window while the guy in the back smiles with a thumbs up. Johnny was at the bar staring at his drink when a guy grabbed his drink, gulps it down, and teased. It's my drink now, loser. Why are you crying over a drink, crybaby? Johnny, with tears in his eyes, replied, you really think it's about the drink? This is the worst day of my life. My girlfriend left me, my bank account's empty, my car had been stolen, and to top it off, I got fired the same day. It's all just terrible. Damn, man, the guy said, taken aback. And then, Johnny continued, I tried to end it all. Laid down on some train tracks, but they changed the train route. Tried using a rope, but it broke. I even tried to shoot myself and missed. The guy, now feeling guilty, said, man, I'm sorry, that's really tough, Johnny went on. Then I tried to poison myself. Whoa, what happened next? Asked the guy, now completely sympathetic. Johnny sighed deeply and said, dude, you just drank it. A man playing on a new golf course got confused as to what hole he was on. He saw a lady playing ahead of him, so he walked up to her and asked if she knew what hole he was playing. She replied, I'm on the 7th hole and you're a hole behind me, so you must be on the 6th hole. He thanked her and went back to his golf. On the back 9, the same thing happened, and he approached the lady, again with the same request. She said, I'm on the 14th, you are a hole behind me, so you must be on the 13th. Once again, he thanked her. He finished his round, went into the clubhouse, and saw the lady sitting at the end of the bar. He went up to her and said, let me buy you a drink to show my appreciation for your help. He started a conversation and asked her what kind of work she did. She said she was in sales, and he said he was in sales also. He asked what she sold. She replied, if I told you, you would only laugh. No, I wouldn't, he said. She said, I sell tampons. With that, he fell on the floor laughing so hard. She said, see, I knew you would laugh. That's not what I'm laughing at, he replied. I'm a toilet paper salesman, so I'm still one hole behind you. A boy talked to his father and said, Daddy, I fell in love and want to date this awesome girl. The father said, that's great, son. Who is she? The son said, it's Sandra, the neighbor's daughter. The father said, oh, I wish you hadn't said that. I have to tell you something, son, but you must promise not to tell your mother. Sandra is actually your sister. The boy is naturally bummed out, but a couple of months later, the son said, Daddy, I fell in love again and she is even hotter. The father replied, that's great, son. Who is she? The son replied, it's Angela, the other neighbor's daughter. The father said, oh, I wish you hadn't said that. Angela is also your sister. This went on a few more times, and finally the son was so mad, he went straight to his mother crying and said, Mom, I am so mad at Dad. I fell in love with 6 girls and I can't date any of them because Dad is their father. The mother hugs him affectionately and says, you can date whoever you want. He isn't your father. A milkman who is dying in the hospital is surrounded by his 2 sons, his daughter, his wife, and a nurse. He turns to his family and says, Peter, my eldest son, I leave you the villas in Beverly Hills. Samantha, my beautiful daughter, to you I give the apartments in Los Angeles Plaza. Charlie, my youngest son, I see a long and bright future in you, so I leave the city center offices to you. And you, my dear wife, the 3 residential towers in downtown are all yours. The nurse hears all of this and is impressed at the man's sizable fortune. She turns to the wife and says, Ma'am, your husband must be very rich to be bequeathing so many properties. You all are so lucky. The wife retorts, Rich? Lucky? Are you fucking kidding me? He's a milkman. Those are his roots where he delivers milk. A teacher tells her students to do a good deed for homework. The next day, the students came to school. The teacher asks them one by one on what they did. The first kid, Billy, says, I gave money to a homeless man. Very good, Billy. The teacher is proud and turns to the next student. And how about you, Susie? Susie says, I helped my mom with the chores. The teacher says, very good, Susie. The teacher was very impressed and had high hopes for the next kid when she saw Johnny with 2 black eyes. What happened, Johnny? The teacher asks, worried. Johnny says, I was in a grocery store and a woman near me seemed to have her dress tucked into her ass. I noticed and wanted to help her, so I took it out for her. Then she hit me. The teacher says, oh my God. Then she asks, what about the other black eye? Johnny responds, well, I saw she was upset, so I put it back in. Three guys find a lamp while hiking in the woods. They rub it, and a genie appears granting them 3 wishes each. First guy wishes for $1 billion. Poof, it's in his bank account. Second guy wishes to be the richest person alive. Poof, his net worth is now over $100 billion. The third guy thinks a while and says, I want my left arm to rotate clockwise for the rest of my life. Poof, his arm starts rotating. For their second wishes, first guy wishes to marry the most beautiful woman. She appears in his arms. Second guy wishes to be irresistibly attractive. He's transformed, and the first guy's wife starts flirting with him. The third guy wanted his right arm to rotate counterclockwise this time. Both arms spin in opposite directions. This is your last wish, said the genie. The first guy wishes, I never want to get sick or injured. He's in perfect health. The second guy says he wants to remain 29 forever. He is ageless. The third guy smiles and says, my last wish is for my head to nod back and forth. He's now nodding his head. Many years later, they meet again. The first guy says, I've invested the money and multiplied it many times. The second guy says, I'm still the richest in the world and haven't aged a day. And yes, your wife is pretty wild in bed. Third guy walks in, flailing his arms around and nodding his head and says, guys, I think I fucked up. A man thought his wife was cheating on him because of some male clothing he found in his house. He's sure that it's not his clothes. So he went to see his friend who owns a pet shop and asked for a suggestion. The man explained the entire situation to his friend and asked for help. His friend said, I have a parrot that will let you know about all the activities that happened in your home when you were at work. This bird has no legs, so he holds on to his perch with his third leg. The man asked with confusion, what do you mean by third leg? His friend replied, oh, come on. I mean with his little sausage. The man thought it was really weird, but because he trusted his friend, he brought the bird home. Next evening, when he came back from work, the man asked the parrot, did anything happen today? The parrot said, yes. The milkman came over. The man said, I knew something is going on with my wife. Then he asked the bird, what did he do with my wife? The parrot replied, well, he came in and handed her the bottle of milk. Then he asked about you, whether you're home or not. The man got angry and said, what did they do? The nasty bird replied, I don't know. After their first kiss, I got hard and fell. Little Johnny was told by his friends that adults have a deep, dark secret and can be easily manipulated. Johnny decides to test it. He comes home, goes up to his mother and says, Mom, I know everything. Mom shushes him and gives him $10. Just don't tell Dad, okay? She says. Hey, it's working, thinks little Johnny. An hour later, Dad comes home from work. Johnny goes up to him and says, Dad, I know everything. Dad gives Johnny $100. Don't tell Mom, okay? He says. Just then, the mailman knocks on the door. Johnny opens it and says, I know everything, mister. The mailman drops all his mail. His eyes tear up and he says, well then, Johnny, come give Daddy a hug. A man walks into a bar and orders a drink. The bartender gives the man his drink, and the man asks, if I show you something crazy, would you let me have free drinks for the rest of the night? The bartender thinks for a minute and then says, it would have to be something spectacular to take that offer. The man leans down and picks up a box and sets it on the bar. He opens the box, and inside is a small piano man, whom is only 1 foot tall, and beside him, a little piano. The piano man starts playing classical music like Beethoven and Chopin. The bartender is in utter disbelief. He tells the man, you can have free drinks for the rest of the night, but only if you tell where you got this. The man says, in the alley way behind your bar, there is a genie who is granting free wishes to everyone who wants them. The bartender heads behind his bar to see if it was true. A few minutes passed, and out of the alleyway erupts a cacophony of quacking. The bartender rushes back into the bar and shuts his door against a wave of thousands of ducks. He manages to secure the door and says to the man, I think that the genie is hard of hearing, because after I asked for $1 million, these ducks appeared by the thousands. The man chuckles and says, did you really think I wished for a 12-inch pianist? Bruh. A very handsome man gets into a terrible car accident. The doctors save his life, but he loses one eye. Before a nice glass one can be fitted, he is temporarily given a wooden eye. The man becomes very depressed because of his eye loss and sits at home, moping around. Eventually, his friends come over and drag him out to a bar to try and cheer him up. While at the bar, he's still just sitting there looking depressed, not really talking. One of his friends suggests he tries to talk to a cute girl who seems alone at the bar. No, she'll never go for a man with a wooden eye, the man says. Okay, how about that girl over there? His friend responds. She has a really big nose. The man walks over to the girl and asks, would you like to dance? Very excited and shocked to be asked to dance by such an attractive man, the woman responds, would I? Would I? To which the man quickly responds, big nose, big nose. It was the mailman's last day on the job after 35 years of carrying the mail through all kinds of weather to the same neighborhood. When he arrived at the first house on his route, he was greeted by the whole family who congratulated him and sent him on his way with a tidy gift envelope. At the second house, they presented him with a box of fine cigars. The folks at the third house handed him a selection of terrific fishing lures. At the fourth house, he was met at the door by a strikingly beautiful blonde woman in a revealing negligee. She took him by the hand, gently led him through the door, which she closed behind him, and took him up the stairs to the bedroom, where she blew his mind with the most passionate love he had ever experienced. When they were finished, the woman handed him $1. The mailman says, "All this was just too wonderful for words, but what's the dollar for?" "Well," she said, "last night I told my husband that today would be your last day and that we should do something special for you. I asked him what to give you. He said, 'Screw him! Give him $1!'" A teacher gave her students an assignment, asking them to share a story with a moral. Little Johnny raised his hand and said, "My parents once told me a story." The teacher encouraged him to share, and Johnny began. So there was a little bird flying south for the winter. It was so cold the bird froze and fell to the ground into a large field. While he was lying there, a cow came by and pooped right on top of him. As the frozen bird lay there in the pile of cow poop, he began to realize how warm he was. He lay there all warm and happy, and soon began to sing for joy. A passing cat heard the bird singing and came to investigate. Following the sound, the cat discovered the bird under the pile of cow poop and promptly dug him out and ate him. The teacher was stunned and asked, "Dear God, what was the moral of that story?" Little Johnny replied, "Well, it teaches us some valuable lessons. Not everyone who shits on you is your enemy. Not everyone who gets you out of shit is your friend. And when you're in deep shit, it's best to keep your mouth shut."
Nice.
A guy asked a girl in a university library, "Do you mind if I sit beside you?" The girl replied with a loud voice, "No, I don't want to spend the night with you." All the students in the library started looking at the guy. He was pretty embarrassed. After a while, the girl walked quietly over to the guy's table and said, "I study psychology. I know what a man is thinking. I guess you felt embarrassed, right?" The guy then responded with a loud voice, "$1,000 for one night? That's too much." All the people in the library looked at the girl in shock. The guy whispered, "I guess you felt bad for what you did earlier, right? I study law. I know how to make someone feel guilty." While in China, an American man is very sexually wild and does not use a condom the entire time he is there. A week after arriving back in the States, he wakes one morning to find his penis covered with bright green and purple spots. Horrified, he immediately goes to see a doctor. The doctor orders some tests and tells the man to return in 2 days for the result. The man returns a couple of days later, and the doctor says, "I've got bad news for you. You've contracted Mongolian VD. It's very rare and almost unheard of here in the US. There's no known cure. We're going to have to amputate your penis." The man screams in horror. "Absolutely not. I want a second opinion." "Well, it's your choice, but surgery is your only option." The next day, the man seeks out a Chinese doctor. The Chinese doctor examines his penis and proclaims, "Ah, yes, Mongolian VD, very rare disease." The guy says to the doctor, "I already know that, but what can we do? My American doctor wants to cut off my penis." The Chinese doctor shakes his head and laughs. "Stupid American doctors always want amputate. Make more money. No need to amputate." "Oh, thank God," the man exclaims. The doctor says, "Wait 2 weeks. Fall off by itself."
Bruh.
While in China, an American man is very sexually wild and does not use a condom the entire time he is there. A week after arriving back in the States, he wakes one morning to find his penis covered with bright green and purple spots. Horrified, he immediately goes to see a doctor. The doctor orders some tests and tells the man to return in 2 days for the result. The man returns a couple of days later, and the doctor says, "I've got bad news for you. You've contracted Mongolian VD. It's very rare and almost unheard of here in the US. There's no known cure. We're going to have to amputate your penis." The man screams in horror. "Absolutely not. I want a second opinion." "Well, it's your choice, but surgery is your only option." The next day, the man seeks out a Chinese doctor. The Chinese doctor examines his penis and proclaims, "Ah, yes, Mongolian VD, very rare disease." The guy says to the doctor, "I already know that, but what can we do? My American doctor wants to cut off my penis." The Chinese doctor shakes his head and laughs. "Stupid American doctors always want amputate. Make more money. No need to amputate." "Oh, thank God," the man exclaims. The doctor says, "Wait 2 weeks. Fall off by itself."
Bruh.
A guy gets home early from work and hears strange noises coming from the bedroom. He rushes upstairs to find his wife naked on the bed, sweating and panting. "What's up?" he says. "I'm having a heart attack," cries the woman. He rushes downstairs to grab the phone. But just as he's dialing, his 4-year-old son comes up and says, "Daddy, Daddy, Uncle Ted's hiding in your closet and he's got no clothes on." The guy slams the phone down and storms upstairs into the bedroom, past his screaming wife, and rips open the wardrobe door. Sure enough, there is his brother, totally naked, cowering on the closet floor. "You rotten bastard," says the husband. "My wife's having a heart attack, and you're running around naked scaring the kids." A blind woman got on a bus. Sadly, the bus was crowded and all the seats were taken. A man noticed that everyone on the bus was ignoring the blind woman and no one was willing to give up their seat. So he stood up, took the blind woman's hand, and kindly guided her to his seat. Then he took a standing spot as the bus started up. The man frowned at the others for their selfishness, and the passengers looked at him with terror on their faces. Later that day, the man came home in tears, his uniform torn and covered in bruises. Concerned, his wife asked him, "Hon, what happened to you?" With a sad, devastated face, the man said, "The bus company just fired me." 3 guys arrived at the pearly gates where they met St. Peter. He said, "I know you're forgiven, but I have to ask some questions to determine what type of car you get. Heaven is huge, so you'll need a car to travel." St. Peter asked the first man, "How long were you married?" He replied, 27 years. St. Peter then asked, "Did you ever cheat on your wife?" The guy said, "Yeah, about 10 times. But you said I was forgiven." St. Peter replied, "Yes, but that's not too good. Here's a Corolla for you to drive." The second guy said, "I was married for 52 years and cheated on her only once, but that was during our first year and we worked it out." St. Peter said, "I'm pleased to hear that. Here's a Mercedes SUV for you to drive." The third guy said, "St. Peter, I know what you're going to ask. I was married for 63 years and didn't even look at another woman. I treated my wife like a queen." Impressed, St. Peter rewarded him with a Ferrari. Later, the men with the Corolla and the SUV saw the Ferrari owner crying on the golden sidewalk. When they asked him what the matter was, he tearfully said, "I just saw my wife and she was riding a bike."
Bruh.
A blonde pays $1 million to use a stadium to prove blondes are not stupid. She fills the stadium with 80,000 other blondes and hires a TV host as a presenter. The presenter starts with a simple geography question. Name a country besides United States. The blonde thinks for 15 seconds and answers, "Paris." Everyone is a little disappointed. Then 80,000 blondes start cheering, "Give her another chance. Give her another chance." The presenter says, "Well, since we've gone to the trouble of getting 80,000 of you in one place, I guess we can give her another chance." So, he asks, "Here is a simple math question. What is 3 times 8? After nearly 30 seconds, she eventually says, 58. Everyone is disheartened. The blonde starts crying, and the 80,000 girls begin to yell and wave their hands, shouting, "Give her another chance! Give her another chance!" The presenter gives her one more chance and asks, "What is 2 plus 2? The girl closes her eyes, and after a whole minute eventually says, 4. Throughout the stadium, pandemonium breaks out as all 80,000 girls jump to their feet, wave their arms, stomp their feet, and scream, "Give her another chance! Give her another chance!" A woman was in bed with her lover when she heard her husband coming home. Both of them started panicking, trying to figure out what to do. In a hurry, she whispered to her lover, "Quick! Stand in the corner, don't move until I tell you to. Just shut your eyes and pretend you're a statue." Just as her lover froze in the corner like a statue, her husband walked into the room. He looked puzzled at this new strange figurine and asked, "What is this, dear? We've never had a statue." With a calm face, she answered, "Oh, it's just a new statue, honey. The Smiths have one in their bedroom, and I liked it so much that I got one for us too." Her husband bought her explanation, and they went to bed. She breathed a sigh of relief, thinking she had managed to get away with it this time. Around 3 o'clock in the morning, her husband got very hungry. He went to the kitchen and returned with a sandwich and a glass of milk. With a smirk, he said to the statue, "Here, have something to eat. I stood like a dummy at the Smiths for 3 days, and no one even gave me a glass of water." A boy asked his father, "What is politics?" The father thinks and says to him, "Well, son, think of our family like a country. Since I make money that the family uses, think of me as capitalism. Your mom is the government because she makes the rules and decides everything. You depend on us for everything. You're like the people of the country. The maid is working class, since she does all the hard work, and your baby sister is the future. Think about it and let me know what you come up with tomorrow, okay?" says the boy. Later on, the family goes to bed after dinner. That night, the boy wakes up due to his sister sister screaming and crying and checks on her to see that she has pooped in her diaper. He goes to his parents' bedroom and sees his mom sound asleep, then goes to the maid's room. Finding the door locked, he peeks in through the keyhole and sees his dad having sex with the maid, and the boy goes back to bed. His dad comes to him the next morning and asks, "Any thoughts about the conversation?" The boy replies, "Yeah, while the government is sound asleep, capitalism is screwing the working class. People are being ignored and the future is in deep shit." There were 3 nuns. They all told the priest that they were going to do 1 sin each. So the priest says, "Okay, do your sins, come back and I'll bless you." So they went to do their sins and came back to get blessed. The priest asked the first one, who was laughing, what her sin was. She said, "I had sex with a guy." The priest said, "Okay." He blessed her and said, "Go drink some holy water." So she did. The next one was laughing harder. The priest asked her what her sin was. She said, "I got in a fight with another nun." So he says, "Okay." He blessed her and told her to go drink some holy water. So she did. The priest asked the last one, who was laughing even harder, on what she did. And as she was laughing, she said, "I pissed in the holy water."
No.
A new boss takes over at a struggling company and decides to get rid of all the slackers. On a tour of the facilities, the boss notices a guy leaning on a wall. He can't believe this guy would just stand around on the job. The new boss walks up to the guy leaning against the wall and asks, "What are you doing here?" "I'm just waiting to get paid," responds the man. Furious, the boss asks, "How much money do you make a week?" A little surprised, the young fellow replies, "I make about $300 a week." The boss quickly gets out his checkbook, hands the guy a check made out to cash for $1,200 and says, "Here's 4 weeks' pay, now get out and don't come back." The man puts the check in his pocket and promptly walks out. Feeling pretty good about himself, the boss looks around the room and asks, "Does anyone want to tell me what just happened here?" From across the room comes a voice. "Yeah, you just tipped the pizza delivery guy $1,200. 3 drunk guys entered a taxi. The taxi driver knew that they were drunk, so he started the engine and turned it off again and said, "We have reached your destination." The first guy gave him money and the second guy said,
"Thank you."
Then suddenly the third guy slapped the driver. The driver was shocked, thinking the third drunk knew what he did. The driver then asked, "What was that for?" The third guy replied, "Control your speed next time. You nearly killed us." A gorilla dies of old age at a zoo right before the zoo opens. It is the only gorilla at the zoo since they are not very profitable. However, the gorilla is their most popular attraction by far, and they can't afford to go a day without it. So the zoo owner asks one of his workers to wear a gorilla suit they have in storage for an extra $100 a day if he will go in the gorilla cage and pretend to be the gorilla until the zoo can afford a new one. Quickly, the new gorilla becomes the most popular craze at the zoo. People from all over are coming to see the human-like gorilla. About a month in, the craze has started to wear off. So, to get people's attention back, he decides to climb over his enclosure and hang from the net ceiling above the lion's den next to him. A large crowd of people gather, watching the spectacle in awe and terror. Suddenly, the man loses his grip and falls to the floor of the lion's den. The man starts screaming, "Help! Help!" Suddenly, a lion pounces him from behind and whispers in his ear, "Shut the fuck up right now or you're going to get us both fired." 3 women died and found themselves standing at the pearly gates. St. Peter said to the first woman, "How many men did you sleep with in life?" The first woman said, "I only slept with one man, my husband, and I didn't sleep with him until after we were married." St. Peter turned to the angel standing next to him and said, "Give her the key to the silver room." The angel gave the woman a silver key, and the woman went into heaven with the key. Then St. Peter said to the second woman, "How many men did you sleep with in life?" "I remained a virgin my whole life, for I was a nun, and I devoted my life to God." St. Peter turned to the angel and said, "Give her the key to the golden room." The angel gave the woman a golden key, and the woman went into heaven with the key. Then St. Peter said to the third woman, "How many men did you sleep with in life?" "I slept with 13 men before I started dating my husband, 35 men while we were dating, 49 men while we were engaged, 56 men while we were married, and 28 men after he died." St. Peter turned to the angel and said, "Give her the key to my room." A woman spent $15,000 on a face procedure to look young, and on her way home, she stopped a random guy and asked, "Excuse me, how old do you think I am?" The guy replied, "About 32. The woman felt really good and said, "I'm actually 46. After that, she went to McDonald's for lunch and asked the cashier the same question. The cashier replied, "You look about 29. The woman felt even better and said, "I am actually 46. She then went to a park and saw an old man sitting alone. Curious, she asked him the same question. The old man replied, I am 83 years old and my eyesight isn't good. But when I was young, there was a sure way of telling a woman's age. If I can feel your breasts, I will be able to tell your exact age. There was no one around, so the woman said, What the hell? And let him slip his hand up her shirt. After feeling around for 5 minutes, the old man said, Well, you're 46. The woman was stunned and said, That was brilliant. How did you do that? The old man replied, I was behind you in line at McDonald's. A priest offered a lift to a nun. She got in and crossed her legs, forcing her gown to reveal a leg. The priest nearly had an accident. After controlling the car, he stealthily slid his hand up her leg. The nun said, Father, remember Psalm 129? The priest removed his hand. But changing gears, he let his hand slide up her leg again. The nun once again said, Father, remember Psalm 129? The priest apologized. Sorry, sister, but the flesh is weak. Arriving at the convent, the nun went on her way. On his arrival at the church, the priest rushed to look up Psalm 129. It said, Go forth and seek further up, you will find glory. What is the moral of the story? If you are not well informed in your job, you might miss a great opportunity. The student asks the teacher some trick questions. The student says, There are 500 bricks on an airplane. One falls off. How many bricks are left on the plane? 499, of course. How do you put an elephant in a refrigerator? You can't. An elephant is too big for a fridge. It's easy. Just open the door, put the elephant in, and close the door. How do you put a giraffe in the refrigerator? Open the door, put the giraffe in, and close the door. Wrong. You have to open the door, take the elephant out, put the giraffe in, and close the door. The Lion King is having a birthday party. All the animals are invited except one. Which one is not invited? The hyena, I guess? No, the giraffe because it's in the fridge. Oh, come on! Sally wants to cross an alligator-infested river. There is no bridge, and the only way she can get across is by swimming. But Sally crosses safely. How? Sally used a boat? No. The crocodiles are at the birthday party. But Sally dies anyway. Why? She got bitten by a snake? No. She got hit by a falling brick. An 18-year-old Italian girl tells her mom that she has missed her period for 2 months. Very worried, the mother goes to the drugstore and buys a pregnancy kit. The test result shows that the girl is pregnant. Shouting, cursing, and crying. The mother says, Who is the pig that did this to you? I want to know. The girl picks up the phone and makes a call. Half an hour later, a Ferrari stops in front of their house. A mature man with gray hair and elegantly dressed in an Armani suit enters the house. He sits in the living room with the father, mother, and girl and tells them, Good morning. Your daughter has informed me of the problem. I can't marry her because of my personal family situation, but I'll take charge. I will pay all costs and provide for your daughter for the rest of her life. Additionally, if a girl is born, I will give her a Ferrari, 2 retail stores, a townhouse, a beachfront villa, and a $2 million bank account. If a boy is born, my legacy will be a factories and a $3 million bank account. If twins, they will receive a factory each and $4 million each. However, if there is a miscarriage, at this point, the father who had remained silent places a hand firmly on the man's shoulder and tells him, You fucker again. A man goes to the World Cup final, but there's a problem. As the man takes his seat at the World Cup final, he looks to his left and notices that there is an extra seat between himself and the next guy. The man says, Who on earth would ever miss the World Cup final? The guy replies, That was my wife's seat, but sadly, she passed away last week. We used to go to all the games together. The man says, I'm so sorry to hear that. Did she like football? The guy replies, Hell yeah, she was a huge fan. We have been to the last 5 World Cup finals together. She was the one who got me into football. The man says, I'm so sorry to hear that. And by the way, couldn't you get a member of the family, a friend, or someone else to come to the game with you? The guy says, I tried asking them, but they all said they are too busy to come with me. The man replies, Too busy? It's the World Cup final. How can they be so busy that they can't go to the World Cup? The guy replies, They are all at the funeral. A well-dressed drunk man walks into a bar and shouts, Bartender, a drink for everyone, a drink for me, and a drink for yourself. The bartender pours all the drinks. The whole bar cheers. Afterwards, the bartender hands the bill to the man, who just shrugs and says, Oh, I didn't bring my wallet with me tonight, sorry. The bartender proceeds to beat the living daylights out of the man and throws him out. The next night, the same man stumbles into the bar. Bartender, the man happily shouts, a drink for everyone, a drink for me, and a drink for yourself. The bartender thinks, this guy can't be that stupid. I hope for his sake that he came to pay for last night's drinks too, so I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. So he pours all the drinks. The whole bar cheers. The bartender hands the bill to the man, and he again shrugs and says, "Oh, I forgot my wallet again. Sorry." The bartender proceeds to beat the man even harder than before and kicks him out. On the third night in a row, the bartender can't believe his eyes when he sees the man return. "Bartender, a drink for everyone and a drink for me." The bartender is fuming and grins. "What? No drink for me tonight?" The drunk looks at him and says, "Nah, man, you get too violent when you drink." A man was riding on a full bus minding his own business when a gorgeous woman settled into the seat beside him. To his surprise, she began to breastfeed her crying baby, creating a captivating yet awkward scene. The baby, however, seemed uninterested in nursing, prompting the mother to say, "Come on, sweetie, eat up, or I'll have to offer it to this nice man beside us, and then you won't have any left." As minutes passed, the baby's cries grew louder, and the determined mother, attempting to maintain composure, repeated, "Come on, honey, stay still and feast, or I'll really have to give it to this kind gentleman here." Despite her efforts, the baby remained stubbornly uninterested. For the third time, the lady tried to feed her baby. "Come on, eat up, darling. This is your last warning, and I'll really give it to this nice man." Feeling the mounting tension, the anxious man decided he couldn't bear it any longer. With a mix of frustration and impatience, he stood up and said, "Come on, lady, make up your mind. Are you really going to give it to me or what? I was supposed to get off 4 stops ago." A man is getting into the shower just as his wife is finishing up her shower when the doorbell rings. The wife quickly wraps herself in a towel and runs downstairs. When she opens the door, there stands Bob, the next door neighbor. Before she says a word, Bob says, "I'll give you $800 to drop that towel." After thinking for a moment, the woman drops her towel and stands naked in front of Bob. After a few seconds, Bob hands her $800 and leaves. The woman wraps back up in the towel and goes back upstairs. When she gets to the bathroom, her husband asks, "Who was that?" "It was Bob, the next door neighbor," she replies. "Great," the husband says. "Did he say anything about the $800 he owes me?" A professor is having lunch in the cafeteria when a student sits down across from him. The professor says with a smirk, "Birds and pigs don't eat together." The student replies, "Oh, sorry, then I'll fly away." Embarrassed at being outsmarted, the professor decides to fail the student on the test the following week. However, the student answers all the questions perfectly. So, with the intention of puzzling him, the professor poses a little problem. You're in the street and you find 2 bags, one filled with money and one with intelligence. Which one do you choose? The student confidently replies, "The bag filled with money." The professor retorts, "I would have chosen intelligence." Then the student responds, "People always take what they don't have." The professor swallows his anger and marks the student's paper with jerk in the margin. The student takes his paper, sits down, and after a few minutes comes back. He says to the professor, "Sir, you signed it, but you forgot to grade it." An old lady went to the grocery store and put the most expensive cat food in her basket. The girl at the cash register said, "I'm sorry, but we can't sell you cat food without proof that you have a cat. Some old people buy cat food to eat. The management wants proof that you are buying it for your cat." The old lady went home, picked up her cat, and brought it back to the store. They sold her the cat food. The next day, the old lady went to the store and bought 12 of the most expensive dog cookies. The cashier this time demanded proof that she had a dog. She went home, came back, and brought in her dog. She was then given the dog cookies. The next day, she brought in a box with a hole. The old lady asked the cashier to stick her finger in the hole. The cashier said, "No, you might have a snake in there." The old lady assured her that there was nothing in the box that would bite her. So the cashier put her finger into the box and pulled it out and told the old lady, "That smells like shit." The old lady smiled. "Now, my dear, can I please buy 3 rolls of toilet paper?" The nurse asked a patient to remove his clothing and put on a gown to be checked by the doctor. The patient says, "In front of you?" The nurse says, "Don't worry, I have seen the naked human body before." The patient said, "Not one like mine. You would die laughing at my naked body." "Of course I won't laugh," said the nurse to the patient. "I'm a professional. In over 20 years, I've never laughed at a patient." "Okay then," said the patient. And he proceeded to drop his trousers, revealing a huge male muscular body with the smallest adult male organ the nurse had ever seen in her life. In length and width, it was almost identical to a AAA battery. Unable to control herself, the nurse started laughing really loud. Feeling very bad that she had laughed at the patient private part, she composed herself as well as she could. "I'm so sorry," the nurse said. "I don't know what came over me. On my honor as a nurse and a lady, I promise that it won't happen again. Now tell me what seems to be the problem," the patient replied. "My dick is swollen." The nurse ran out of the room. A wife tells her husband, "Honey, let's play a game." He says, "Okay, what's the game about?" She replies, "If I mention a country, you run to the left side of the room and touch the wall, and if I mention a bird, you run to the right side of the room and touch the wall. If you run in the wrong direction, you'll give me all your salary for this month." "Okay?" He thinks for a second, then agrees. "Okay, and if you fail in your turn, I'll have your salary too, right?" The wife smiles and quickly says, "Yes, darling." The husband stands up and is ready to play the game. "Are you ready?" she asks. Then she shouts, "Turkey!" The husband gives her a blank stare and stays in the same spot for 3 hours, wondering what move to make. She fooled him because he can't decide whether she meant turkey the country or the bird. The lesson is, after God, fear wife. The 6th grade science teacher, Mrs. Parks, asked her class, "Which human body part increases to 10 times its size when stimulated?" No one answered until little Mary stood up and said, "You should not be asking 6th graders a question like that. I'm going to tell my parents and they will go and tell the principal, who will then fire you." Mrs. Parks ignored her and asked the question again. "Which body part increases to 10 times its size when stimulated?" Little Mary's mouth fell open. Then she said to those around her, "Boy, is she going to get in big trouble?" The teacher continued to ignore her and said to the class, "Anybody?" Finally, Billy stood up, looked around nervously and said, "The body part that increases 10 times its size when stimulated is the pupil of the eye." Mrs. Parks said, "Very good, Billy," then turned to Mary and continued. "As for you, young lady, I have 3 things to say. 1, you have a dirty mind. 2, you didn't read your homework. And 3, one day you are going to be very, very disappointed." A woman lay on her deathbed holding her husband's hand and confessed that she had cheated on him 3 times during their years of marriage. She swore it was always for a good reason and is now asking for forgiveness. The man was clearly hurt by his wife's confession but said, "I never suspected. Can you tell me what you mean by good reasons?" The woman explained, "The first time was shortly after we were married and we were about to lose our house because we couldn't pay the mortgage. Do you remember that one evening when I went to see the banker and the next day he notified you that the loan would be extended?" The husband recalled and said, "I can forgive you for that. You saved our home, but what about the second time?" The wife continued, "Do you remember when you were so sick, but we didn't have the money to pay for the heart surgery you needed? Well, I went to see your doctor one night, and if you recall, he did the surgery for free." "I do recall that," said the husband. "And you did it to save my life, so of course I can forgive you for that. Now, tell me about the third time." The wife said, "So do you remember when you ran for president of your golf club, and you needed 73 more votes? A wife refuses to give her maid a pay raise, but the maid reveals a secret. Maria was a 19-year-old Mexican maid who worked for a wealthy Californian couple. One day she asks the madam of the house for a pay increase. The madam was really annoyed at this and asked, "Now, Maria, why do you want a pay increase?" Maria said to her, "Well, senora, there are 3 reasons why I want an increase. The first is that I iron clothes better than you." The madam angrily said, "Who said you iron better than me?" Maria replied, "Your husband said so." The madam said, "Well, that's fine, I'm okay with that." Maria then said, "The second reason is that I am a better cook than you." The madam got annoyed and said, "Nonsense, who said you were a better cook than me?" Maria replied, "Your husband did." The madam, a little jealous, now said, "Well, that's okay, it doesn't bother me." Maria then said, "My third reason is that I am better at sex than you." The madam, really furious now, said, "Did my husband say that as well?" Maria hilariously replied, "No, senora, the mailman did." The madam then said, "So, how much raise do you want?" A woman joins a country club and asks the guys, "Mind if I join you next week?" One of the guys says, "Okay, but we start at 6:30 a.m. The woman asks if she can be up to 15 minutes late. They agreed. She's there at 6:30 a.m. sharp and beats all of them. The guys are impressed. They congratulate her and invite her back the next week. She says, "I'll be there at 6:30 or 6:45. She again shows up at 6:30 sharp. She plays left-handed. The 3 guys are incredulous as she still beats them, despite playing with her offhand. They invite her back again. The third week, she's 15 minutes late. This week, she plays right-handed and still beats all 3 of them. No one can figure her out until one of the men asks her, "How do you decide if you're going to golf right-handed or left-handed?" The lady says, "When my dad taught me to play golf, I learned that I was ambidextrous. And when I got married, I discovered my husband always sleeps naked. From then on, right before I leave for golf practice, I pull his blanket, and if his willy points to the right, I golf right-handed. If it points to the left, I golf left-handed." The guys think this is hysterical. Then one of the guys says, "What if it's pointing straight up?" She says, "Then I'm 15 minutes late." A woman is at home when she hears someone knocking at her door. She goes to the door, opens it, and sees a man standing there. He asks the lady, "Do you have a vagina?" She slams the door in disgust. The next morning, she hears a knock at the door. Again, it's the same man, and he asks the same question. "Do you have a vagina?" She slams the door again. Later that night, when her husband gets home, she tells him what has happened for the last 2 days. The husband tells his wife in a loving and concerned voice, "Honey, I am taking off tomorrow so I can be home, just in case this guy shows up again." The next morning, they hear a knock at the door, and both run for the door. The husband whispers to the wife, "Honey, I'm going to hide behind the door and listen. And if it is the same guy, I want you to answer yes to the question because I want to see where he's going with this." She nods yes to her husband and opens the door. Sure enough, the same fellow is standing there. He asks, "Do you have a vagina?" "Yes, I do," says the lady. The man replies, "Good. Would you mind telling your husband to leave my wife alone and start using yours?" A guy driving a Kia pulls up at a red light next to a Rolls Royce. The driver of the Kia shouts, "Hey buddy, nice car. You got Wi-Fi in that?" "I've got Wi-Fi in my Kia." The driver of the Rolls looks over and says simply, "Yes, I have Wi-Fi." The driver of the Kia says, "You got a fridge in there too?" "I got a fridge in the back of my Kia." The driver of the Rolls, looking annoyed, says, "Yes, I've got a fridge." The driver of the Kia says, "That's great, man. What about a TV?" "You know I got a TV in the back of my Kia." The driver of the Rolls, looking very annoyed by now, says, "Yes, this is one of the most luxurious cars in the world. Of course it has a TV." The driver of the Kia says, "Oh, so you must have a bed too then. My Kia's bed is so comfortable." The Rolls-Royce driver was shocked. He had never heard of a car with a bed before, so he went straight to the dealer and ordered that a bed be installed in the back of his car. He spent the whole next day driving around looking for the Kia. Finally, late that night, he finds the Kia parked with all the windows fogged up from the inside. The driver of the Rolls knocks on the Kia's window. At first, there is no answer. Then the owner sticks his head out soaking wet. "I now have a bed in the back of my Rolls-Royce," said arrogantly. The driver of the Kia says, "Come on, man. You got me out of the shower for that?" An 80-year-old Italian man goes to the doctor for a checkup. The doctor is amazed at what good shape the guy is in and asks, "How do you stay in such great physical condition?" "I'm Italian, and I am a golfer," says the old guy. "And that's why I'm in such good shape. I'm up well before daylight and out golfing up and down the fairways, have a glass of vino, and all is well. I'm sure that helps," says the doctor. "But there's got to be more to it. How old was your dad when he died?" "Who said my dad's dead?" The doctor is amazed. "You mean you're 80 years old and your dad is still alive? How old is he?" "100 years old," said the man. "In fact, he golfed with me this morning. He's Italian and he's a golfer too. That's why he's still alive." "Well," the doctor says, "that's great, but I'm sure there's more to it than that. How about your dad's dad? How old was he when he died?" "Who said my grandpa's dead?" "You mean you're 80 years old and your grandfather's still living?" "Incredible. How old is he?" "He's 118. The doctor is getting frustrated at this point. "I guess he went golfing with you this morning too." "No, Grandpa couldn't go this morning because he's getting married today." "Getting married? Why would a 118-year-old guy want to get married?" "Who said he wanted to?" A boy has a crush on a girl from his school, but he doesn't know how to tell her. He calls his dad, who is at work. His dad answers, "What do you want? I'm at work right now." "Dad, I have a big crush on Emma, and we've been texting for a month now. How do I tell her? She's the girl who is also in 6th grade and is in my science class. I really want her to be my girlfriend." His dad sighs. "I'm at work right now. I don't have time for this. Let's talk about this later." The boy starts pleading. "Please, she's going to be in my next class. Please tell me really quick what I should say." The dad replies, "Okay, how about this? You are the prettiest, smartest, funniest girl in the 6th grade. I know you're only 11, but I can't stop thinking about you. I've loved talking to you online. I think we should become boyfriend and girlfriend." The dad realizes that his whole office has gone silent and is looking at him with absolute shock. No, it's not what you think. I'm talking to a little boy." 2 days after Mr. Wood's wife went missing while scuba diving, Mr. Wood heard a banging sound on his door late at night. He squinted his eyes through the peephole and found 2 gentlemen in uniform waiting for him outside. He opened the door and greeted the officers. "We're sorry to disturb you at this hour, Mr. Wood, but we have some information concerning your wife. Actually, we have some bad news, some good news, and some great news. Which one would you like to hear first?" Fearing the worst, Mr. Wood asked for the bad news first. "We're sorry to inform you, sir," the policeman said. "We found your wife's body in the San Francisco Bay this morning." "Oh, Lord, that's the worst that could have happened," said distraught Mr. Wood. "What's the good news?" "When we pulled her up," continued the policeman, "she had 2 5-pound lobsters and a dozen crabs on her." "What?" already confused Mr. Wood exclaimed. "So what's the great news?" the officer replied. "We're going to pull her up again tomorrow." Comment your own funny stories for a chance to be featured in one of my videos. An old blind cowboy wanders into an all-girl biker bar by mistake. He finds his way to a bar stool and orders a shot of Jack Daniels. After sitting there for a while, he yells to the bartender, "Hey, you want to hear a blonde joke?" The bar immediately falls absolutely silent. In a very deep, husky voice, the woman next to him says, "Before you tell that joke, cowboy, I think it is only fair, given that you are blind, that you should know 5 things. The bartender is a blonde girl with a baseball bat. The bouncer is a blonde girl with a billy club. I'm a 6-foot-tall, 175-pound blonde woman with a black belt in karate. The woman sitting next to me is blonde and a professional weightlifter. The lady to your right is blonde and a professional wrestler. Now think about it seriously, cowboy. Do you still want to tell that blonde joke?" The blind cowboy thinks for a second, shakes his head and mutters, "No, not if I'm going to have to explain it 5 times." A man goes to the dentist to ask how much it would be to pull a tooth. $100, said the dentist. "Oh, that's expensive," said the man. "Do you have anything cheaper?" "That's the normal price for an extraction," said the dentist. The man thinks about it. "What about if you don't use the anesthetic?" "Well, that would be unusual, but we could do that. It would be about $75. The man thinks some more. "What about if you used a trainee and no anesthetic?" "Well," said the dentist, "I think that could work, but it would be a lot more painful. I think that would be about $35. The man thought some more. "That's still a lot. What if you make it a training session with a student doing the extraction and the other students can watch?" The dentist says, "Okay, that would be good for the students, but it will be traumatic to have it done that way. I'll charge you $5 for that." "Great," said the man. "That's perfect. Can I book my wife for her appointment on Wednesday?" When I was 13, I hoped that one day I would have a girlfriend with big tits. When I was 16, I got a girlfriend with big tits, but there was no passion. So I decided I needed a passionate girl with zest for life. In college, I dated a passionate girl, but she was too emotional. She was a drama queen and cried all the time. So I decided I needed a girl with stability. When I was 25, I found a very stable girl. But she was boring, she was totally predictable, and never got excited about anything. Life became so dull that I decided I needed a girl with some excitement. When I was 28, I found an exciting girl, but I couldn't keep up with her. She rushed from one thing to another, never settling on anything. She did mad, impetuous things and made me miserable as often as happy. So I decided to find a girl with some real ambition. When I turned 30, I found a smart, ambitious girl with her feet planted firmly on the ground, so I married her. She was so ambitious that she divorced me and took everything I owned. I am older and wiser now, and I'm looking for a girl with big tits. Carol was a bully at school and a troublemaker, and she wanted to get a bike for her birthday, so she asked her mom for one. Carol's mother, being a Christian woman, wanted her to reflect on her behavior and write a letter to God explaining why she deserved a bike. Little Carol stubbornly agreed and started writing a letter. Letter 1. Dear God, I have been a good girl and want a bike for my birthday. Your friend, Carol. Carol knew this wasn't true, so she decided to change it. Letter 2. Dear God, I know I haven't been a good girl. I am very sorry, and I will be a good girl if you just send me a bike for my birthday. Thank you. Your friend, Carol. Carol knew that even if it were true, this letter was not going to get her the bike. By now, she was upset. She went downstairs and told her mother she wanted to go to church. Carol's mother thought her plan had worked because Carol looked very sad. When Carol arrived at the church, she looked around to see if anyone was there. She picked up a statue of the Virgin Mary and ran straight home to her room. She shut the door and wrote her letter to God. Letter 3, I've got your mama. If you want to see her again, send the bike. Signed, you know who. A little girl asked her mother a question. Mummy, how did the human race begin? The mother answered, well, dear, God made Adam and Eve, and they had children, and so all of mankind was made. The little girl pondered her mother's answer. But the next day, the little girl asked her daddy the same question. Daddy, how did the human race begin? The father answered, it's like this, baby girl. Many years ago, there were monkeys who really loved to breed, and from them, the human race evolved.
Monkey.
This confused the little girl, as both parents answered the question with a different answer. So the next day, she returned to her mummy and said, Mummy, you said that human beings were created from Adam and Eve, but Daddy said they evolved from monkeys. The mother answered, well, dear, it's really very simple. I told you about my side of the family, and your daddy told you about his. A boss called his most valued employees home to find out why he was absent. The child whispered. Hello, the boss asked. Is your daddy home? The child whispered. Yes, the boss then inquired. May I talk with him? The child whispered. No. Surprised and wanting to talk with an adult, the boss asked. Is your mommy there? The child whispered. Yes. The boss asked. May I talk with her? Again, the child whispered. No. The boss asked, Is anybody else there? The child answered, Yes, a policeman. Wondering why a cop would be at his employee's home, the boss asked, May I speak with the policeman? The child answered, No, he's busy. The boss said, Busy doing what? The child answered, Talking to Daddy, Mommy, and the fireman. Growing more worried as he heard a loud noise in the background, the boss asked, What is that noise? The child answered, A helicopter. Now, truly anxious, the boss demanded, What is going on there? The child whispered, The search team just landed a helicopter. Alarmed, concerned, and a little frustrated, the boss asked, What are they searching for? The little voice whispered, Me. For her 18th birthday, a girl wanted a new car and asks, Dad, can I get a Ferrari? Her dad says, Only if you can spell Ferrari. She thinks, F-A-R-A-R-E-E. Nice try, but wrong, her dad says. The girl frowns. The next day, she asks her dad, Can I get a Lamborghini? Her dad replies, Only if you can spell Lamborghini. She thinks and says, L-A-M-B-O-R-G-I-N-I. Her dad says, Close, but not quite right. The girl becomes more frustrated. On the third day, she asks, Can I get a Porsche? Her dad answers, Only if you can spell Porsche. She grumbles and spells P-O-R-S-H. Her dad shakes his head, wrong again. Feeling defeated, she doesn't understand why she can't get the spellings right. The next day, with a sigh, the teen girl goes to her dad. Dad, can I just get a BMW? My flight was being served by an obviously gay flight attendant who seemed to put everyone in a good mood as he served us food and drinks. As the plane prepared to descend, he came swishing down the aisle and told us that Captain Marvy has asked me to announce that he'll be landing the big, scary plane shortly, so lovely people, if you could just put your trays up, that would be super. On his trip back up the aisle, he noticed this well-dressed and rather Arabic-looking woman hadn't moved a muscle. Perhaps you didn't hear me over those big brute engines, but I asked you to raise your traysy poo so the main man can pity-pat us on the ground. She calmly turned her head and said, In my country, I am called a princess, and I take orders from no one. To which, I swear, the flight attendant replied, without missing a beat, Well, sweet cheeks, in my country, I'm called a queen, so I outrank you. Tray up, bitch. A man walks into a bar and says to the bartender, 4 drinks, please. The bartender asks, Rough day? The man replies, Yeah, I just found out that my brother is gay. The bartender says, Well, everyone has their own path. The next day, the man walks into the bar again and says, 4 drinks, please. The bartender asks, Another rough day? The man replies, Yeah, I just found out that my oldest son is gay. The bartender says, Well, that's his choice. On the third day, the man walks into the bar again and says, 4 drinks, please. The bartender asks, OMG, another rough day? The man replies, Yeah, I just found out that my youngest son is gay. The bartender says, It's totally up to him who he is attracted to. The 4th day comes around, and the man walks into the bar again and says, 4 drinks, please. The bartender asks, Doesn't anyone in your family like women? The man replies, Yeah, my wife, a blonde and a redhead who were best friends, owned a large farm. One day they woke up to find their only bull missing. They searched everywhere but couldn't find it. After giving up hope, they both decided to buy another bull. They checked their accounts, but they only had $500 in the account. The redhead told the blonde, I will go to the market and see if I can find one for under that amount. If I find one, I will send you a telegram. Meet me outside the telegraph office once you get the message. The redhead then left for the market. She searched every shop but found only expensive ones. Finally, she managed to find one fine bull for just $4.99. With $1 remaining in her pocket, she went to the telegraph office where she found out that it cost $1 per word. She remained there silent, thinking about how to tell the blonde to bring the truck and the trailer. Finally, she told the telegraph operator to send the word comfortable. Skeptical, the operator asked, How will she know to come with the trailer and truck from just one word? The redhead replied, She's a blonde, so she reads slow, come for the bull. Dave was bragging to his boss. He said, I know everyone there is to know, just name anybody. His boss called his bluff. Okay, Dave, how about Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson? The Rock and I go way back. I can prove it. So Dave and his boss fly out to Los Angeles and knock on his door. The Rock answers, Dave, what's happening? Come on in for a beer. Dave's boss is still skeptical after they leave The Rock's house. He tells Dave that he thinks knowing him was just lucky. No, name anyone else. How about Joe Biden? Yup, Dave says. At the White House, Biden spots Dave. Dave, what a surprise. Come on in and let's catch up. Dave's boss is still not totally convinced. He says, "There's still no way. How about the Pope? You can't be friends with him." "Sure," says Dave. So off they fly to Rome. At the Vatican, Dave says, "This will never work. I can't catch the Pope's eye among all these people. Tell you what, let me just go upstairs and I'll come out on the balcony with the Pope." Sure enough, half an hour later, Dave emerges with the Pope on the balcony, but sees his boss fall over, so he rushes down. Dave asks him, "What happened?" His boss looks up and says, "You and the Pope came out onto the balcony, and the man next to me said, 'Who the fuck is that on the balcony with Dave?'" A man met a beautiful girl and decides he wants to marry her right away. She says, "But we don't know anything about each other." He replies, "That's all right. We'll learn about each other as we go along." And they got married and went on honeymoon to a nice resort. One morning, they were lying by the pool when he got up off his towel, climbed up to the 30-foot high board and did a 2.5 tuck gainer, entering the water perfectly, almost without a ripple. He comes back and lays down on his towel. She said, "That was incredible." He said, "I used to be an Olympic diving champion. You see, I told you we'd learn more about ourselves as we went along." So she got up, jumped in the pool, and started doing laps. She was moving so fast that the ripples from her pushing off at one end of the pool would hardly be dawn before she was already touching the other end of the pool. After about 30 laps completed in mere minutes, she climbs back out and lays down on her towel. He said, "That was incredible. Were you an Olympic endurance swimmer?" "No," she said. "I was a prostitute in Venice and I worked both sides of the canal." Kim Jong-un walks into a school in North Korea. He asks the student, "Who is your father?" The student replies, "The supreme leader, infinite in wisdom and kindness, provider and protector of the Koreans. He is our only father." Kim Jong-un beams and says, "Excellent." He then asks the student, "Now tell me, who is your mother?" The student doesn't hesitate. "The land of true Korea, outstanding in her beauty, international superpower and redeemer of all civilizations. She is our only mother." Kim Jong-un applauds and says, "What a diligent student you are. What do you want to be when you're older?" The student replies, "An orphan. 4 cannibals apply for a job in a big corporation." "Well," says the boss, "if I hire you guys, you have to promise to not eat any of our staff." The cannibals promise that they will not eat anyone, and so they get hired. Everything is going well for a while, and the boss is very happy that he hired them. But one day, the boss calls them into his office. "You're working well and all, but we're missing an office cleaner. Do you have something to do with that?" The cannibals swear that they are innocent. They tell the boss how they have no idea who or what he is talking about. The boss believes them and leaves the office. As soon as he's gone, they all turn to their leader. "You idiots!" he screams. "Who ate the cleaner?" One of the cannibals sheepishly raises his hand. "You fool!" shouts the leader. "For weeks, we've been feasting on directors, team leaders, project managers, and human resource staff. And then you go and eat someone they'll actually miss."